The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Coalition headquarters stretched endlessly above, its walls pulsing with strange alien lights. Inside this grand chamber, representatives from hundreds of worlds had gathered for what should have been a historic moment. Today, for the first time in galactic history, the humans of Earth were asking to join their ranks. Ambassador Velthar stood at the center podium, his tall, crystalline body catching the light like a living prism. In his four-fingered hands, he held a small device that projected images of Earth's technology above the assembly. The holographic display showed human spaceships that looked like crude metal boxes compared to the elegant alien vessels parked outside. Their weapons were simple projectile launchers, laughably primitive next to the energy weapons that every civilized species possessed. The alien delegates began to chuckle, then laugh outright. A bug-like creature from the hive worlds clicked its mandibles in what passed for laughter among its kind. The reptilian scalers hissed with amusement, their forked tongues flicking out to taste the air. Even the normally stoic machine collective emitted electronic sounds that resembled mechanical laughter.
Ow.
"Look at these creatures," Velthar said, his voice carrying easily through the chamber's advanced acoustics. "They call themselves humans, and they think they deserve a place among us. Their entire civilization is younger than my grandmother's morning meditation routine." More laughter rippled through the assembly. Velthar gestured to the holographic display, which now showed human soldiers carrying primitive firearms and wearing basic armor. "These beings live for barely 100 years.
Ice.
My people live for millennia. How can creatures with such short lives possibly understand the complexities of galactic politics or warfare?" In the designated human section, Commander Huck sat perfectly still. His weathered face showed no emotion as the aliens mocked his species. Years of military training had taught him to remain calm under pressure, but inside, anger burned like a small flame. Beside him, Lieutenant Mina quietly recorded everything. On her tablet, her fingers moving swiftly across the screen as she documented each insult and slight. The mockery continued for nearly an hour. Representative after representative stood to voice their objections to human membership. The jellyfish-like ethereals floated in their liquid tanks, their translucent bodies pulsing with colors that indicated disdain. The rocky mineral lords communicated through vibrations that their translators converted into words of contempt. "They fight with explosives and metal projectiles," laughed the ethereal prime minister, her voice bubbling through the translation device. "Our children play with more sophisticated toys during their learning cycles." The Vorthan war chief, a massive creature covered in natural armor plates, slammed his fist on his seat. "These soft-skinned weaklings would not last 5 minutes in real combat. They have no natural weapons, no protective shells, no ability to survive in hostile environments without artificial assistance." Commander Huck's jaw tightened slightly, but he remained silent. Lieutenant Mina glanced at him, noting the small vein that had appeared on his temple. She had served under Huck for 3 years and knew that look. He was memorizing every face, every insult, every moment of this humiliation. The voting process was swift and brutal. Species after species cast their votes against human membership. The electronic tally board showed the results in real time, with rejection votes lighting up in red across the display. Not a single species voted in favor of humanity's application. Ambassador Velthar seemed to take particular pleasure in announcing the final results. "The Galactic Coalition votes unanimously to reject the human application for membership. Furthermore, we hereby establish strict territorial boundaries. These humans will be confined to their single solar system until such time as they demonstrate the maturity and capability required for interstellar citizenship." The chamber erupted in approving sounds from various species. The insectoids clicked their approval, the machines beeped in electronic harmony, and the ethereals pulsed with satisfied colors. But Velthar was not finished. He approached the human delegation, his crystalline features gleaming with superiority. "Perhaps in a few thousand years, when your species has evolved beyond its current primitive state, we might reconsider your application. Until then, consider your solar system a nursery where you can play safely without endangering the rest of the galaxy." The final insult hung in the air like a physical blow. Commander Huck slowly stood, his uniform immaculate despite the long session. Lieutenant Mina rose beside him, her tablet clutched tightly in her hands. For a moment, the entire chamber fell silent as hundreds of alien eyes watched the human reaction. Hugh looked directly at Velthor, then let his gaze sweep across the assembled representatives. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet but carried clearly through the chamber's acoustics. "We understand your position perfectly." Without another word, he turned and walked toward the exit. Lieutenant Mina followed, her boots clicking on the crystalline floor. As they reached the chamber doors, Hugh paused and looked back one final time at the aliens who had humiliated his species. The message was clear. The galaxy had declared war on humanity without realizing it. The massive colony ship New Dawn drifted silently through the cold vacuum of space, its white hull reflecting the distant light of Alpha Centauri. Inside the vessel, 10,000 people slept in cryogenic pods, dreaming of the new world they would call home. After months of preparation and years of planning, humanity was finally ready to take its first steps beyond Earth's solar system. Captain June stood on the bridge, watching the twin stars of Alpha Centauri grow larger through the main view screen. His weathered hands gripped the command chair as he studied the navigation displays. The journey had taken 18 months, but they were finally approaching their destination. Behind him, his crew worked at their stations with practiced efficiency, monitoring the ship's systems and preparing for orbital insertion. Captain called Navigator Hannah from her station. "We're receiving telemetry from the advanced probe. The target planet shows excellent conditions for settlement. Breathable atmosphere, abundant water, and suitable soil composition." June nodded, allowing himself a small smile. The probe had been sent ahead 2 years earlier to survey the system and select the best world for humanity's first colony. Everything was proceeding according to plan. "Communications," June ordered. "Prepare a transmission to Earth Command. Let them know we've reached the system and are beginning final approach." Communications Officer Nari began typing at her console, but she suddenly froze. Her face went pale as she stared at her instruments. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple energy signatures. Large ones. They're not showing on our main sensors." Before June could respond, space around the New Dawn began to shimmer and distort. 12 massive warships materialized from nowhere, their hulls gleaming with strange alien metals. Each vessel was at least 3 times the size of the human colony ship, bristling with weapon systems that looked like crystalline growths along their sides. The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of life support systems. June felt his heart sink as he realized what was happening. The aliens had been waiting for them. "Red alert," he commanded, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at his chest. "All hands to battle stations." The New Dawn had no weapons beyond basic defensive systems. It was designed to carry colonists and equipment, not to fight wars. Against 12 alien warships, they were completely helpless. The largest alien vessel moved closer, positioning itself directly in front of the colony ship. Its hull was covered in the same crystalline material that June had seen in recordings of Zephyrian technology. Energy weapons swiveled to target the human vessel, their power readings off the charts. The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the alien flagship. The creature standing at its center was tall and angular, with skin that looked like living crystal. Its eyes glowed with an inner light, and when it spoke, its voice carried the same arrogant tone that had become familiar to every human who had watched the Coalition proceedings. "Greetings, little humans," the alien commander said, his words dripping with condescension. "I am Captain Zexron of the Zephyrian Deep Space Patrol. You have strayed far from your designated boundaries." June stepped forward, his military bearing evident despite the hopeless situation. "I am Captain June of the Earth colony ship New Dawn. We are conducting a peaceful settlement mission in unclaimed space." The alien laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Unclaimed. These systems belong to the Galactic Coalition, you children. We're told to remain in your home system until you grow up enough to join civilized society." "This system is over for light years from Earth," June protested. "There are no Coalition settlements here, no territorial markers, no indication of ownership." "The entire galaxy belongs to the Coalition," Zexron replied, his glowing eyes narrowing. We simply allow primitive species to exist in their nurseries until they prove themselves worthy of expansion. You have not proven yourselves worthy.
Behind.
June, Communications Officer Nari, quietly activated the ship's recording systems. Every word, every gesture of alien arrogance was being documented for transmission. Back to Earth, the galaxy needed to see what humanity was truly facing. The alien. Commander gestured dismissively. You will return to your home system immediately. Your childish attempt at expansion ends here. Consider this a gentle reminder of your place in the cosmic order. And if we refuse? June asked, though he already knew the answer. Zextron's expression turned cold. Then you will learn why children should obey their elders. My weapons are fully charged and targeted on your vessel. You have exactly 60 seconds to begin your return journey. June looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These were good people, skilled professionals who had volunteered for humanity's greatest adventure. Behind them, 10,000 colonists slept peacefully, unaware that their dreams of a new world were being crushed by alien arrogance. Begin return course, June ordered quietly. Signal the escort ships to form up for the journey home. As the new dawn slowly turned away from Alpha Centauri, the alien warships moved to surround them. The journey home would take 18 months, every day a reminder of humanity's humiliation. But June knew that this was not the end of the story. On Earth, Admiral Tay received the transmission with grim determination. The aliens had shown their true nature. Now, it was time for humanity to show theirs. The research vessel Discovery drifted quietly through the outer edge of the Proxima system, its hull painted in the white and blue colors of Earth's Scientific Survey Division. To any casual observer, it looked like just another human probe ship conducting routine deep space research. The vessel's manifest listed standard scientific equipment, telescopes, particle detectors, and communication arrays designed to study distant stars and planets. Captain Day stood in the ship's compact bridge, watching the sensor displays with intense focus. His crew of 12 specialists worked at their stations with practiced silence, their movements careful and deliberate. These weren't typical scientists, though their credentials would pass any inspection. Each member of the team was handpicked from Earth's military intelligence services, trained in reconnaissance and data gathering. Passive sensors are picking up movement in Grid 7 Alpha, reported Lieutenant Kang from his station. Looks like a patrol formation, 3 ships moving in standard search pattern. Day nodded, making notes on his tablet. Distance and heading. Approximately 50,000 kilometers, bearing 27 Mark IV. They're following the same route we observed last week. The Discovery had been stationed in this system for 3 weeks, officially conducting a survey of stellar radiation patterns. In reality, they were mapping every alien ship movement, every communication burst, every routine patrol that passed through the area. The Zephyrian Empire maintained regular patrols through dozens of systems, and the humans were learning, their schedules down to the minute. Captain, called Communications Specialist Nari. I'm intercepting standard patrol chatter. Same frequency as before, same encryption patterns. They're reporting normal space conditions and continuing their assigned route.
Out.
The aliens were so confident in their superiority that they barely bothered to change their communication codes. Their patrol patterns hadn't varied in months, following the same predictable routes that made them easy to track and study. The bridge. Door slid open, and Science Officer Yoon entered carrying a data pad. Her official title was Xenobiology Specialist, but her real expertise lay in analyzing alien military technology and capabilities. Captain, I've finished analyzing the engine signatures from yesterday's patrol, she reported. Their fusion reactors operate on a different frequency than our systems, but they produce a distinctive energy signature that our sensors can detect from considerable distance. How considerable? Day asked. With the right equipment, we could track their ships from over a light year away, Yoon replied. They have no idea how visible they are to our sensors. This was exactly the kind of intelligence that Earth Command needed. While the aliens dismissed human technology as primitive, human engineers had been developing sensor systems specifically designed to detect alien signatures. The enemy's own advanced technology was becoming a liability, 3,000 light-years away. Deep beneath the surface of Earth's moon, Colonel Yen walked through the corridors of Training Facility Omega. The underground complex had been built in complete secrecy, hidden from both alien surveillance and most of Earth's own government. Here, in chambers carved from solid rock, humanity's best soldiers were learning to fight a war unlike any in human history. The training base stretched out before him, a massive chamber with artificial gravity generators that could simulate any environment. Two dozen soldiers moved through a zero-gravity combat exercise, their movements fluid and precise despite the challenging conditions. Each soldier had been selected from elite units around the world, chosen for their intelligence, adaptability, and absolute dedication to the mission. Major Sua, Colonel Yan called out, "Report on today's exercise." Major Sua landed gracefully. On the observation platform, her magnetic boots clicking against the metal floor. Despite hours of intense training, she showed no signs of fatigue. Her dark eyes were sharp with intelligence, and her movements carried the confidence of someone who had mastered every aspect of her profession. The team completed the boarding simulation in record time, she reported. We've reduced our infiltration time by 30% over the last month. The new equipment is working perfectly. Colonel Yen nodded approvingly. The equipment she referred to was reverse-engineered from alien technology, modified and improved by human engineers. Stealth suits that could fool alien sensors, cutting tools that could slice through alien hull materials, and communication devices that could intercept and decode alien transmissions. What about the xenobiology training? Yen asked. All personnel have memorized the anatomical data from the probe missions, Swa replied. We know the weak points of every known alien species, their environmental requirements, and their likely responses to various combat scenarios. This was the real purpose of the scientific missions. While the probe ships gathered intelligence on alien military movements, they also collected detailed biological data on every species they encountered. Human scientists had analyzed everything from alien breathing patterns to their visual spectrum capabilities, creating detailed profiles that would give human soldiers critical advantages in combat. The aliens' arrogance had become their greatest weakness. They saw the human probe ships as harmless curiosities, barely worth monitoring. They had no idea that every routine patrol was being cataloged, every communication intercepted, every weakness identified and exploited in the depths of space. The Discovery continued its silent vigil, just one of dozens of human vessels gathering intelligence across the galaxy. The aliens had dismissed humanity as children playing with toys, but those children were about to teach the galaxy a lesson about the dangers of underestimating human determination and ingenuity. The Karathi patrol ship Crimson Talon drifted silently through the Vega sector, its red hull gleaming under the distant starlight. Inside the vessel, Captain Velcon reviewed the day's patrol reports with growing boredom. The same empty space, the same routine scans, the same predictable patterns they had followed for decades. Sector 7 Alpha Clear reported his weapons. Officer, a younger Karathi whose crimson scales still held the bright sheen of youth. No unusual readings, no unauthorized vessels detected. Velcon nodded absently, his attention focused on the entertainment display showing gladiatorial combat from the homeworld. These patrol duties were mind-numbing work. but necessary to maintain the coalition's control over primitive species like the humans. Not that the pathetic Earth-dwellers posed any real threat. "Captain," called the sensor operator, "I'm detecting a small energy signature at the edge of our scanning range. Could be a navigation beacon malfunction." "Standard protocol," Velkin replied without looking up from his display. "Take us in for a closer inspection." The Crimson Talon adjusted course, its two escort ships following in perfect formation. Akorthi prided themselves on military precision, and their patrol patterns had remained unchanged for generations. Why modify something that worked perfectly? As they approached the energy signature, the sensor operator frowned at his readings. "Captain, the signal is... strange. It doesn't match any known beacon configuration." Velkan finally looked up from his entertainment display, mild curiosity replacing boredom. "Put it on the main screen." The view screen showed empty space dotted. With distant stars, nothing appeared unusual, but the energy readings were definitely present. The signal seemed to be coming from a region of space that should have been completely empty. "All stop," Velkan ordered. Full sensor sweep of the area. The three Karathi ships hung motionless in space, their powerful sensors probing the surrounding void. The energy signature grew stronger, but its source remained invisible to their instruments. It was as if the signal was coming from something that didn't exist. "Captain," the sensor operator said, his voice tight with confusion, "I'm reading massive energy discharge directly ahead, but I can't locate the source." Those were the last words ever recorded from the Crimson Talon. At that moment, the three-ship patrol simply vanished from existence. No explosion, no debris field, no distress signal. They were there 1 second and gone the next, as if they had never existed at all. 6 hours later, Commander Jekdar sat in his command center on the Korathi Fortress Station, staring at a blank tactical display. The Crimson Talon and its escorts were 40 minutes overdue for their scheduled check-in, and all attempts to contact them had failed. "Could be a communication array malfunction," suggested his aide, a nervous young officer who had never seen real combat. The captain might have decided to investigate something interesting. Jekdar's scarred face showed skepticism. Velkan was many things, but unreliable was not one of them. In 30 years of service, he had never missed a scheduled report. "Dispatch Rescue Squadron Beta," Jekdar ordered. "Full search pattern, maximum sensor range. I want to know what happened to those ships." 12 hours later, Rescue Squadron Beta found nothing but empty space. Their powerful sensors detected no wreckage, no energy signatures, no trace of the missing vessels.
The three ships had simply vanished without leaving any evidence they had ever existed.
"Deploy the full rescue fleet," Jekdar commanded, his voice edged with growing concern. "I want every available ship searching that sector." The rescue fleet consisted of 12 heavy cruisers, each carrying advanced sensor arrays and salvage equipment. They spread out across the Vega sector in a comprehensive search pattern. Their instruments scanning every cubic kilometer of space, Captain Morthen commanded the flagship Iron Fist, a massive vessel bristling with weapons and defensive systems. He had served in the Karathi fleet for 50 years and had never encountered anything like this situation. Sector by sector sweep, he ordered his crew. "There's so much as a bolt floating in space. I want to know about it." For 6 hours, the rescue fleet methodically searched the area where the original patrol had vanished. They found nothing. Not a single piece of debris, not a trace of energy discharge, not even a disrupted particle field that might indicate. A battle had occurred, Captain reported the sensor chief. "I'm detecting the same energy signature that the original patrol reported. Bearing 3-7-Mark-8. Morthen studied the readings with growing unease. The signal was identical to the one that had lured the first patrol to their fate. "All ships, maintain current positions.
Oh.
Do not approach the energy source." But even as he spoke, the energy signature began to move. It shifted from ship to ship, appearing near each vessel in turn. The rescue fleet's sensors went wild, detecting massive energy discharges that seemed to come from nowhere. "Captain," the sensor chief shouted. "Multiple contacts, high energy signatures, they're everywhere." Then, in the span of 30 seconds, All 12 ships of the rescue fleet vanished without a trace. No explosions, no debris, no final transmissions. They simply ceased to exist, leaving behind only empty space and the horrified silence of the monitoring stations. Admiral Corthay received the news with disbelief that quickly turned to terror. 15 of his best ships had vanished without explanation, along with nearly 3,000 crew members. The implications were staggering. "Deploy the entire Third Fleet," he ordered, his voice shaking with rage and fear. "I want every ship we have searching that sector. Something's hunting us, and I intend to find it." Unknown to the panicking Corthay, major Swaza strike teams had executed their mission with flawless precision. Using stealth technology that rendered their ships invisible to alien sensors, they had eliminated their targets without leaving a single trace. The galaxy's apex predators had become the hunted, and they didn't even know what was hunting them. The emergency meeting room deep within. The Zephyrian Naval Command buzzed with nervous energy as officers from across the galaxy gathered via holographic projection. Admiral Krelthon stood at the center of the chamber, his crystalline features reflecting the glow of dozens of tactical displays showing empty space where entire fleets should have been. "The situation has escalated beyond our worst projections," Krelthon announced, his voice cutting through the worried murmurs. "In the past 3 weeks, we have lost contact with 47 vessels across 12 different star systems." The holographic representatives shifted uncomfortably. Admiral Zorthak of the Karathi fleet, his red scales dulled with stress, spoke first. "The disappearances in our territory follow no logical pattern. Ships vanish during routine patrols. During combat exercises, even while docked at supply stations, there's no warning, no distress signals, no debris fields. The same phenomenon affects our forces," added General Vextar of the Vorthan Empire, his massive form dominating his section of the holographic display. "We lost an entire battle group yesterday. 12 heavy cruisers and their support vessels simply vanished while investigating a sensor anomaly." Krelthon activated a 3-dimensional star map that filled the center of the room. Red markers indicated the locations of every disappearance, creating a pattern that sent chills through the assembled officers. The vanished ships formed a rough circle around a small, seemingly insignificant yellow star system. "Notice the correlation," Krelthon said, highlighting the pattern with his laser pointer. "Every single disappearance has occurred within 50 light-years of the Sol system. The human homeworld sits at the center of this phenomenon." Commander Tessera of the Ethereal Collective pulsed with skeptical colors. "You're suggesting that primitive humans are responsible for the disappearance of our most advanced warships? Their technology is centuries behind ours. They barely manage to achieve faster-than-light travel." "The evidence speaks for itself," Krelthon replied, zooming in on specific incident locations. "Our analysis shows that every vanished vessel was operating near the boundaries of human-restricted space. The statistical probability of this being coincidence is less than 1 in a trillion." Admiral Zorthak's scarred face twisted with disbelief. "Possible. We've observed their military capabilities. They use primitive projectile weapons and chemical propulsion systems. How could such backwards creatures challenge our combined fleets?" The room fell silent as the implications sank in. For millennia, the Galactic Coalition had maintained absolute military supremacy. The idea that a species they considered barely civilized could threaten their forces was almost incomprehensible. "Perhaps," suggested General Vextar slowly, "we've underestimated their development. Species can advance quickly when properly motivated." "Motivated by what?" Tessera demanded, her form flickering with agitated colors. "We've kept them confined to their home system. They have no access to advanced technology or resources." Krelthon pulled up recordings from the human colony ship incident at Alpha Centauri. "Remember this encounter? The human captain's reaction when we forced them to return home. There was something in his eyes, something we missed." The assembled officers watched the recording in silence. Captain June's controlled demeanor and quiet words took on new meaning when viewed through the lens of recent events. "Intelligence. Reports suggest the humans have been launching scientific probe missions," Krelthon continued. "We dismissed these as harmless research projects, but what if they were gathering military intelligence?" The possibility sent ripples of unease through the gathering. The humans had been systematically studying alien patrol patterns, communication frequencies, and tactical procedures. They would have advantages that no one had considered. Even if they possessed detailed intelligence, Zorthak argued, they lacked the technological capability to act on it. Our sensors would detect any human vessel long before it could pose a threat. Would they? Krelthin asked quietly. Our sensors are designed to detect known technologies. What if the humans develop something we've never encountered? Light years away, Captain Yoon's stealth ship Shadow Walker drifted silently through the Deneb sector, completely invisible to the alien sensors that swept the area. The vessel's hull was covered in a revolutionary material that absorbed and redirected energy across multiple spectrums, making it virtually undetectable to conventional scanning methods. Target acquired, reported Lieutenant Yu from the tactical station. Vorthin patrol formation. 3 heavy cruisers maintaining standard search pattern. Yoon studied the tactical display with cold precision. The alien ships were following the same predictable routes that human intelligence had mapped months earlier. Their formation was textbook perfect, which made them textbook vulnerable. Weapon status? Yoon asked. All systems ready, replied Weapons. Officer Kang. New plasma torpedoes are charged and locked on target. The weapons themselves were human innovations, reverse-engineered from captured alien technology, but improved with human ingenuity. They left no energy signatures, no debris fields, no evidence of their existence. The target ships would simply vanish, adding to the growing mystery that was paralyzing the alien fleets. Fire, Yoon commanded quietly. The Shadow Walker unleashed its weapons in perfect silence. The 3 Vorthin cruisers disappeared in flashes of contained energy, their destruction so complete that not even atoms remained. Within seconds, the stealth ship had vanished back into the void, leaving behind only empty space and 3 more entries in the growing list of missing vessels. Back in the emergency meeting, Admiral Krelthon concluded his briefing with grim determination. Whether we want to admit it or not, we are facing an unknown threat. Our standard tactics and technologies are proving ineffective. We need new strategies, new approaches to this crisis. What do you recommend? Asked General Vexstar. Mobilization. Krelthon replied, deploy every available vessel to patrol the human boundaries. If they are responsible for these disappearances, we'll find the evidence. And if we find evidence, we'll respond with overwhelming force. The assembled officers nodded their agreement, but uncertainty lingered in their expressions. For the first time in galactic history, the Coalition faced an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't track, and couldn't understand. The prey they had dismissed as harmless children was systematically hunting the galaxy's apex predators. The Coalition Intelligence Center hummed with frantic activity as dozens of alien analysts worked. Around the clock, their various forms hunched over holographic displays that showed the devastating losses across the galaxy. Ambassador Velthor stood in the center of the chaos, her crystalline features reflecting the red warning lights that bathed the chamber in an ominous glow. For weeks, she had refused to believe the impossible. The humans were primitive, backward, creatures who barely understood the basics of space travel. Yet the evidence mounting before her painted a different picture entirely. Show me the Rigel incident again, she commanded, her voice tight with growing dread. The main holographic display shifted to show the final moments of the Zephyrian Fourth Fleet. 23 warships had been conducting a routine patrol when they simply vanished without a trace. No explosions, no debris, no final transmissions. One moment they were there, the next they were gone. Now, overlay the temporal data from the Deneb disappearances, Velthor ordered. The display updated, showing a second set of vanishing ships occurring simultaneously 3 star systems away. The timing was too precise to be coincidence. Something was coordinating these attacks with military precision. The pattern is undeniable, reported Chief Analyst Korthax, his insectoid features clicking nervously. Every disappearance occurs within a 50 light-year radius of the human home system. Statistical probability of coincidence is effectively 0. Admiral Krelthon materialized as a hologram beside Velthor, his face a mask of disbelief and rage. What you're suggesting is impossible. These humans can barely manage interplanetary travel, let alone coordinate multi-system military operations. The evidence disagrees with your assessment, Velthar replied, pulling up a three-dimensional star chart. Red markers indicated every coalition loss over the past 6 months, forming a perfect circle around Earth's solar system. Look at this pattern, Admiral. Every single attack has occurred along the borders of human-restricted space. Krelthan studied the display, his crystalline features growing dimmer as the implications sank in. Even if humans were somehow responsible, how could they make our ships disappear so completely? Our vessels are equipped with the most advanced sensors and defensive systems in the galaxy. That's what makes this so terrifying, Velthor said quietly. We're not just destroying our ships, we're eliminating them so thoroughly that we can't even study the wreckage to understand their methods. She activated another display showing supply depot attacks. Look at these incidents. 15 military supply stations destroyed in the past month. Each attack targeted critical resources, fuel depots, weapon storage facilities, communication relay stations. Someone with intimate knowledge of our logistics networks is systematically dismantling our infrastructure. The room fell silent as the assembled analysts absorbed the implications. The attacks weren't random acts of destruction. They were surgical strikes designed to cripple coalition military capability while leaving no evidence of the attacker's identity or methods. Sir, called Communications Officer Tyshan from her station. We're receiving an emergency transmission from the Vorthon Empire. They're reporting the complete disappearance of their 7th battle group. 37 ships, including their flagship Dominator. Krelthan's holographic form flickered with agitation. That's impossible. The 7th battle group was the Empire's most powerful fleet. They had enough firepower to destroy entire star systems, had Velthar corrected grimly. Past tense. Just like every other fleet that has encountered whatever is hunting us. The implications were staggering. For centuries, the Galactic Coalition had maintained absolute military supremacy through superior technology and overwhelming force. The idea that a species they considered primitive could challenge their combined fleets was almost incomprehensible. We need to consider the possibility that we've been wrong about human capabilities, Velthar said slowly. Perhaps their apparent primitiveness was deliberate deception. Deception, Krelthan scoffed. We've monitored their communications, studied their technology, observed their military exercises. They're exactly what they appear to be, a young, inexperienced species with limited technological development. Then explain this, Velthar demanded, highlighting a series of incidents near the Outer Rim. Communication intercepted, supply lines disrupted, patrol routes monitored and predicted. Someone has been studying us as thoroughly as we've been studying them. The truth was becoming undeniable. The humans had been gathering intelligence on coalition forces for months, possibly years. Their innocent scientific missions had been cover for sophisticated reconnaissance operations. Every probe launch, every research vessel, every seemingly harmless exploration had been carefully planned to gather critical military intelligence. They've been playing us for fools, Velthar whispered, her voice filled with a mixture of admiration and terror. While we mocked them as children, they were learning everything about us, our patrol patterns, our communication frequencies, our tactical doctrines. They know us better than we know ourselves. The revelation sent shockwaves through the coalition. Leadership. Emergency sessions were called across the galaxy as species after species grappled with the reality that their supposed supremacy was an illusion. The prey they had dismissed as harmless had become the galaxy's most dangerous predator. On Earth. Admiral June stood in the command center of Lunar Base Alpha, watching intelligence reports flow in from across the galaxy. The alien fleets were in chaos, their confidence shattered by months of systematic elimination. Fear had replaced arrogance in the Coalition's communications, and panic was spreading through their ranks. Status report, he requested from his aide. Operation Ghost Strike is proceeding ahead of schedule, Lieutenant Nari reported. We've eliminated 60% of their patrol capacity and disrupted their supply lines across 12 systems. Their response time to incidents has increased by 400%. June nodded with grim satisfaction. The aliens were finally beginning to understand the true nature of humanity. The children they had mocked were teaching the galaxy a lesson about the dangers of underestimating human determination, and ingenuity. The emergency session of the Galactic Coalition had been called at the worst possible time. Ambassador Velthar stood before the massive holographic display in the central command chamber, crystalline hands trembling as she manipulated the data projections. Around her, representatives from dozens of species watched in stunned silence as the horrifying truth unfolded before their eyes. "The pattern is undeniable," Velthor announced, her voice barely above a whisper. "Every single incident, every vanished ship, every destroyed facility can be traced back to one source." The three-dimensional star map rotated slowly, showing the locations of over 200 separate attacks across the galaxy. Red markers indicated missing fleets. Yellow showed destroyed supply depots. And orange marked disrupted communication networks. The pattern formed a perfect circle around one small, seemingly insignificant star system. "The Sol system," she continued, her voice growing stronger despite her fear. "The human homeworld sits at the exact center of all these incidents. Cannot be coincidence." Admiral Krelthin materialized as a hologram beside her, his towering form flickering with agitation. "What you're suggesting is completely impossible. These humans are barely capable of interplanetary travel. We've observed their technology firsthand. They use primitive chemical rockets and basic metal alloys." "The evidence disagrees with your assessment," Velthar replied, highlighting specific incidents on the display. "Look at the precision of these attacks. Supply depot raids that target exactly the resources needed to cripple our logistics. Communication array destructions that blind our sensor networks at critical moments. Fleet eliminations that remove our most experienced commanders." She pulled up detailed analysis reports that her team had compiled over sleepless weeks. "This isn't random destruction. Surgical warfare conducted by someone with intimate knowledge of our military structure, our patrol schedules, our communication protocols." The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs as species representatives struggled to process the implications. The Korathi delegation huddled together, their red scales dulled with fear. The ethereal collective pulsed with agitated colors, while the Fourth Empire's representatives stood in stunned silence. Even if humans were somehow responsible, Krelthin argued desperately, how could they make entire fleets disappear without leaving any trace? "Our ships are equipped with the most advanced defensive systems in known space. That's exactly what makes this so terrifying," Velthor said, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the chamber. "They're not just destroying our vessels. They're eliminating them so completely that we can't even study the wreckage. To understand their methods," she activated another section of the display, showing intercepted communication fragments. "Our intelligence teams have been analyzing these patterns for months. The attacks show coordination across multiple star systems, precise timing, and knowledge of our defensive capabilities that should be impossible for any species to possess." Unless she continued, her words hanging in the air like a death sentence. "They've been studying us far longer than we realized." The truth hit the assembled delegates like a physical blow. Those innocent scientific missions that humans had been conducting for months, the harmless research probes they had dismissed as childish curiosity, it's been sophisticated intelligence-gathering operations. "They've been watching us," Velthar said, her voice filled with a mixture of admiration and terror. "While we mocked them as primitive children, they were learning everything about us. Our patrol routes, our communication frequencies, our tactical doctrines, our weaknesses." The implications were staggering. For centuries, the Coalition had maintained absolute superiority through advanced technology and overwhelming force. The idea that a species they considered barely civilized could systematically hunt their most powerful fleets was almost incomprehensible. "We need to respond immediately," demanded General Vexstar of the Vorthan Empire, his massive form dominating his section of the chamber. "Deploy every available fleet to Earth's system. End this threat before it spreads further." "And what if we're wrong?" countered Prime Minister Tassara of the Ethereal Collective, her form flickering with nervous energy. "What if this is some unknown phenomenon we don't understand? It could be starting a war with an innocent species." "Innocent?" Krelthin's voice rose with rage. "Over 300 of our ships have vanished. Thousands of our people are dead. Or missing. How is that innocent? The chamber descended into chaos as different species argued for different approaches. Some demanded immediate military action, while others pushed for diplomatic solutions. Fear had replaced the casual arrogance that had defined coalition interactions for millennia, light years away. In the underground command center beneath Earth's lunar surface, Admiral June watched the intercepted coalition communications with cold satisfaction. The aliens were finally beginning to panic, their confidence shattered by months of systematic elimination. Intelligence reports from across the galaxy show coalition forces, in complete disarray, reported his aide, Lieutenant Nari. Their response? Times have increased by 400%, and they're pulling ships from frontier patrols to protect their core systems. June nodded grimly as he studied the tactical displays. The enemy fleets that had once seemed invincible were now scattered, and afraid, jumping at shadows and seeing threats everywhere. The hunters had become the hunted, and they were learning what it meant to be prey. Phase 2 is proceeding perfectly, he said quietly. The aliens are discovering what happens when you underestimate human determination. The war was far from over, but the balance of power had shifted decisively. The children they had mocked were teaching the galaxy a lesson about the true nature of humanity. The bridge of the retribution was a marvel of human engineering fused with alien technology. Admiral Tay stood at the center of the command deck, her hands resting on a control console that had been crafted from materials salvaged from dozens of captured coalition vessels. The massive warship stretched for nearly 2 kilometers, its hull gleaming with armor plating that could withstand the most powerful alien weapons around her. The crew worked with practiced efficiency. These weren't the same humans who had been humiliated at the coalition chambers months ago. They were hardened veterans of a shadow war, their faces bearing the quiet confidence of those who had turned the galaxy's greatest military powers into scattered, frightened remnants. Communication array is ready, Admiral, reported Lieutenant Kong from his station. All coalition frequencies are locked in. The transmission will reach every inhabited world in known space. Tay nodded, adjusting her uniform one final time. This moment had been months in the planning, carefully timed to coincide with the coalition's growing panic. The aliens had spent weeks trying to understand how their fleets were vanishing, never imagining that the primitive humans they had dismissed were systematically hunting them. Begin transmission, she commanded, the holographic recording system activated, capturing her image and preparing to broadcast it across the galaxy. For a moment, Tay thought about the journey that had brought humanity to this point. The mockery in the coalition chambers, the forced retreat from Alpha Centauri, the months of careful planning and preparation. Citizens of the Galactic Coalition, she began, her voice clear and strong. I am Admiral Tay of the Earth Defense Force. For too long, you have treated humanity as children unworthy of your respect. You have confined us to our home system, denied us the right to expand among the stars, and mocked our capabilities. The transmission was being received on thousands of worlds across the galaxy. In command centers and government buildings, alien leaders watched with growing horror as the truth of their situation became clear. Today, we reveal the price of your arrogance, Tay continued.
Ow!
Over the past 6 months, human forces have captured or destroyed 3,427 coalition vessels. Their crews, totaling over 100,000 personnel, are currently held as prisoners of war in secure facilities. The bridge crew watched the tactical displays as the transmission reached different sectors of the galaxy. Communication networks lit up with frantic alien chatter as species after species confirmed what they had feared but refused to believe. We possess detailed intelligence on every coalition military installation, every supply depot, every patrol route, Tay announced. Your prisoners have been quite helpful in providing information about your defensive capabilities and strategic weaknesses. This was not entirely true, but the psychological impact was devastating. The aliens had no way of knowing that most of their intelligence had been gathered through months of careful observation and analysis. The suggestion that their own people had betrayed military secrets would spread. Paranoia and mistrust throughout coalition ranks. The holographic displays behind me show the locations of your missing fleets, Tay said, gesturing to the tactical readouts that filled the bridge. Every red marker represents a coalition vessel that no longer exists. Every yellow marker shows a supply depot that has been eliminated. Every green marker indicates a communication array that has been destroyed. The star map was a web of colored lights stretching across dozens of systems. The scope of human operations was staggering, revealing a campaign of systematic destruction that had crippled coalition military capacity. You believed us incapable of challenging your technological superiority? Tay continued. You assumed that our primitive weapons and basic spacecraft posed no threat to your advanced fleets. You were wrong. She paused, allowing the weight of her words to sink in across the watching galaxy. Humanity has learned to fight in the shadows, to strike without warning, to eliminate threats before they can respond. We have become what you feared most, a species that refuses to accept the limitations you imposed upon us. The transmission showed footage of human strike teams in action, their stealth ships moving through space like ghosts. The aliens watching could see their own vessels being eliminated with surgical precision. Their crews captured before they could send distress signals. You have 72 hours to make a choice, Tay announced, her voice hardening. Lift all restrictions on human expansion and grant us full membership in the Galactic Coalition with all associated rights and territories. Accept us as equals, not as children to be managed. The ultimatum hung in the air like a death sentence across the galaxy. Emergency sessions were being called as species leaders struggled to comprehend the complete reversal of galactic power. If you refuse our terms, Tay continued, you will discover what happens when you underestimate humanity's capacity for war. Your fleets will continue to vanish, your supply lines will be severed, your communication networks will be silenced. We will hunt you across the galaxy until you have no choice but to accept our demands. She stepped closer to the recording device, her eyes burning with determination. The age of human subjugation is over. We take our place among the stars by right of conquest, not by permission of those who thought themselves are betters. Transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. The children they had mocked had become the apex predators of known space, and the cosmic order would never be the same crystalline chamber that had once echoed with contemptuous laughter now trembled with barely contained fear. The towering halls of the Galactic Coalition headquarters, where humanity had been humiliated and dismissed as children, were filled with a very different energy. The emergency session had been called with unprecedented urgency, and every species representative knew that the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Ambassador Velthor stood at the central podium, her once gleaming crystalline features now dull and cracked with stress. The proud Zephyrian, who had mocked humanity's primitive technology, now looked like a broken statue. Her inner light dim with the weight of her species' catastrophic miscalculation. The vote is now open, she announced, her voice hollow and mechanical. The question before us is simple. Do we accept humanity's ultimatum and grant them full coalition membership? Or do we continue to resist and face the consequences of their ... capabilities? The chamber was filled with nervous whispers and agitated movements. The Karathi delegation huddled together, their red scales pale with fear. The ethereal collective pulsed with anxious colors, while the Vorthan Empire's representatives sat in stunned silence. These were the same species that had laughed at human technology just months ago, confident in their superiority and dismissive of any threat the primitive Earth dwellers might pose. Before we vote, Admiral Krelthan said from his position near the tactical displays, let us review the current situation. In the past 72 hours, we have lost an additional 47 vessels. Our supply lines are completely disrupted. Our communication networks are operating at less than 30% capacity. The holographic displays showed the devastating scope of human operations. Red markers indicated the locations of vanished. Fleet's yellow showed destroyed supply depots, and orange marked silenced communication arrays. The pattern of destruction stretched across dozens of star systems, a web of human influence that had grown beyond anyone's worst nightmares. The humans have demonstrated capabilities that we never imagined possible, Krelthan continued, his voice heavy with defeat. They have turned our own technological advantages against us. exploited our predictable patterns, and eliminated our forces with surgical precision. The voting began with the smaller species, many of whom had already made their decision. Insectoid Collective voted to accept human demands, their clicking sounds translated as desperate pleas for peace. The Mineral Lords, speaking through their vibration translators, also voted for acceptance, their rocky forms trembling with fear, one by one. The galaxy's former masters cast their votes. The Ethereal Collective, their forms flickering with resigned colors, voted to accept. The Vorthan Empire, stripped of their military might, had no choice but to agree. Even the proud Karathi, who had once boasted of their warrior culture, voted for peace rather than face complete annihilation. The final vote came down to the Zephorian Empire, the species that had led the charge against human membership. Ambassador Belthar stood in silence for long moments, staring at the tactical displays that showed the complete destruction of her people's military power. The Zephyrian Empire, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper, votes to accept human demands. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The unanimous vote was not a celebration of human achievement, but a recognition of their complete domination. The species that had been dismissed as children had become the galaxy's apex predators. In less than a year, the Galactic Coalition formally recognizes humanity as a full member species, Velthar announced, her words carrying the weight of galactic surrender. All territorial restrictions are hereby lifted. Humanity is granted full expansion rights and equal representation in all coalition matters. At the human delegation table, Admiral June stood with quiet dignity. The former colony ship captain, who had been humiliated at Alpha Centauri, now served as humanity's primary diplomatic representative. His weathered face showed no triumph, only the calm satisfaction of a job well done. Behind him, Admiral Tay and Colonel Yan watched the proceedings. With professional interest, these were the architects of humanity's shadow war, the minds that had transformed a rejected species into the galaxy's dominant power. Their presence alone was enough to keep the alien delegates in line. Humanity accepts this decision, June said simply. We look forward to working with the coalition as equals, not as subjects. The words were polite, but the underlying message was clear. The galaxy now belonged to humanity. Everyone present understood the new reality. Across the galaxy, human colony ships that had been waiting in hidden staging areas began their journey to distant worlds. The New Dawn, the vessel that had been forced to retreat from Alpha Centauri, led the first wave of colonists to their new homes. This time, no alien patrol would stop them. On dozens of worlds, human settlements took root with unprecedented speed. The colonists were protected by invisible guardian fleets that eliminated any potential threats before they could materialize. The galaxy's former masters watched nervously from their own territories. Afraid to venture too far from their home systems, the transformation was complete. The children who had been mocked for their primitive technology had become the galaxy's apex predators. The cosmic order had been permanently altered, and every species in known space had learned a lesson that would echo through the ages. Never underestimate the species that calls itself humanity. In the depths of space, human patrol ships moved. Like ghosts through the void, their presence a constant reminder of the new reality. The galaxy had a new master, and it wore a human face.